Good day, guys. Austin here, and in this one today, it's time for a bit of EMU-NATION. And in this episode, we're going in depth with the new current build of Cemu version 1.6.3. What I'm going to do is go in depth with how it's affected the various different games, the kind of features that it's implemented, and the kind of hindrances that it's brought upon us. Now, to be honest, this was a very good build, as they always are. And there was quite a lot of stuff they wanted to focus on, especially graphically. However, with time restraints, they had to focus on key features. One of the most key ones was the sound. They've basically rewritten the sound from scratch. And it proves, as you're emulating, as you're playing the games, the sound is now pretty much as it should be in-game, across the board on all the games that are working to that kind of level. Also elsewhere, they've implemented texture, they've implemented lighting effects, all kinds of stuff. Depth of field, it's pretty much looking a lot more polished than what it was. So, yeah, those features have been added. So, without me just waffling on and telling you what they have done, let's show you what they've done. So, without further ado, let's get stuck in. Right, so what I'm going to do is take you through each one of the games and tell you how it's performing on this newest build of Cemu version 1.6.3. Now, it's pretty much good news across the board, except there is a few hindrances, yet also a few surprises. So, this one, first up, Super Mario 3D World. No surprises here. If anything, it has been vastly improved, especially in terms of the more minor graphical glitches and features which were hampering it before. It's still got the texture caching issue going on, so I don't think that's going to go anytime soon. So you do have to play through the game a couple of times just to make it run smoothly, so you haven't got them stutters which are highly annoying. In terms of frames per second, in terms of, I don't know, sound, all them kind of stuff, it's good. The anti-aliasing has really polished this off, and it's pretty much looking like, you know, the finished article of the genuine version. Also, that's fixed too. You've now got ground on the course clear bit. Mario Kart 8 then, and this was pretty much polished as it was, to be honest. If you had a GPU and a CPU that could handle this, especially the CPU, then you were all good to go. I would say in the last couple of incarnations of the emulator, it's really been polished up. Again, the anti-aliasing have really kind of, I don't know, put the finishing touches to what was an already awesomely emulated game. And it's flabbergasting how far this has come in just a short stage of time. Also, the frames per second, I would say it's been improved. I was getting, you know, a few drops to the 50s, low 50s should I say. Now, the lowest I've got is 57 frames per second, and that is hardly noticeable and very rare indeed. This is now fully playable, sound, graphics, and looking highly polished across the board. Twilight Princess HD, and this is almost in the same category. I'm getting full frames per second, no slowdown at all. I'm also getting awesome sound emulation, and it's looking damn good. The only thing I would say is I'm getting these little tiny flashes and glitches, which, you know, it's hardly, well, it is noticeable, but it's hardly a game stopper. You know, you can play all the way through this if you can put up with this kind of glitching going on. Now, I've tried changing all the settings, texture caching, everything that I can think of. It is not improving. Hopefully, future builds, but for now, if you can put up with it, you can play it. PIKMIN 3 then, and this was, it was always been fully playable for some time. It has been improved. I would say the level of detail, especially in the environment, has been greatly improved. Shadows improved. The one thing I would say, and something I didn't notice when I was doing my dedicated video, is the fact that I didn't realise that the characters have now lost the shadows. In early versions of this emulator, the characters themselves had shadows underneath them. They're gone. Now, the environment's still got its shadows, and the sound's all there, the frames per second, but that's the one thing that seems to be letting this down at the moment. Other than that, I'm seeing no problems with this whatsoever. I by no means completed it, but from what I can tell, this is now fully playable. Bayonetta 2. Now, again, this is no change across the board. We weren't expecting anything different because this was pretty much fully playable. I'm getting awesome frames per second. If anything, that has now been improved. Also improved for me is the tiny glitches that I seem to be getting when things were getting hitching. It's kind of the same stuff that I was seeing in the Xenoblade Chronicles stuff. It was hardly noticeable, but for me, I did pick up on it. Sound is, well, beeps, squeaks and whistles, so you have to play with the sound off. But in terms of the actual gameplay and visuals, awesome. Zelda Wind Waker HD. Now this is an awesome game and one of my favourites of all time. It is now looking highly polished and awesome also. I mean, the lighting and everything that's been improved in this really does look like the finished article. It'd be hard to compare these to the genuine thing and see the difference between them. Now the game was hampered at this stage when you had the trolls, and well, when you started to fight in the emulator of the previous versions, it would just crash and you couldn't proceed any further, which meant that was about as far as you could go with the story. This is now fully playable because you can actually get through there, and well, it's pretty much ticks across the board with everything. Frames per second, environments, no glitches, everything is good except I cannot get into the in-game menu. Well, I can't. If anyone can, please let me know. But I can't save my game. StarFox and this one seem to be going worse and worse within each incarnation of this emulator. For some reason, the texture caching was really starting to struggle and really getting worse on this one. Now, I think, you know, every time you improve an emulator, especially something as early as this and as work in progress as this, you're going to have hits on various other games, because each time you change something, it will improve something and it will also hinder something else further down the line. But this one was really taking hits and it was just stuttering. The texture caching was really taking a hit on my PC. Other people seem to be working fine, but for me it was almost, well, it was unplayable. Now, as you can see, the graphics have been greatly improved for me. It's really starting to polish up. I think it's the anti-aliasing again, which has really started to bring this in. I'm getting a lot of the post effects and glowing going on, which is absolutely awesome. The one thing that needs to be fixed is the sound and the frames per second. Yoshi's Yarny World, whatever this is called. Not my cup of tea, but yeah, it's not a bad game. I'm just not a Yoshi fan, I'm afraid. Yeah, as you can see, people are saying that this is fully playable. For me, no way. I don't know what build they're playing on, what rig they're playing on, but for me, I'm getting this. Glitches everywhere, problems, low frames per second, and every time I try to grab onto a black bit of yarn, that happens. I get a crash. So for me, completely unplayable and, well, not my cup of tea anyway. Something that is my cup of tea and a hidden little gem that I love in all the franchises is this one, Wipeout 3. Now for me this was crashing on me and I didn't give it as much glory as what I should have done, but now it's fully working. In fact, it's working so well that it's working too well, because I'm getting speed ups of my frames per second. So at certain areas in the game I will get like a fast forward thing going on, which makes it hard to play. Now it would be great if I could get this fixed. I've tried going through all the various different settings in the emulator itself. I've also tried it in the graphics card and anything else that I can do. Nothing seems to be improving at all. But for me, I really like the Wipeout franchise. I know it's no AAA big budget title, I know it's just harmless fun, but for me, I do really like it and I would appreciate if I could get this game to work. But yeah, sound, frames per second, graphics, everything is tickety-boo, just too good in some places. Xenoblade Chronicles then, and I did a dedicated video for this the other week, and I think it was fully deserving of it because the improvements, especially in the last build of the emulator, really strided this forward. I've now heard that people have been completing this game. That's how good it is. A game this big and is this detailed, people have actually been enjoying themselves completing the game on the emulator. Now, I would say that the textures and issues that I was seeing previously now seem to have been cleared up quite considerably. Also, it's looking a lot more polished, smoother. The sound effects have been greatly improved across the board. Now, that was something that the developers were saying that was going to be improved on this one, and it has. The one thing I would say is that my frames per second have really taken a hit for this one. Elsewhere then we've got the Super Smash Bros. And, well, it's the same old story for this, I'm afraid. Awesome stride forward. I'm seeing fewer graphical glitches than I was seeing before, if any at all. But the major one, and the one that still hampers this game and makes it unplayable for me, is the texture caching. There's so many characters, so many moves, so many maps, that it's almost impossible to get all the texture caching to get this to run smoothly, especially for 4 players. Something that I did get working, although, well, I'd say slightly working, is Lego City Undercover. Now, I tried all the Legos, and some of them that were working are now completely unplayable. Yeah, for some reason, this one, which wouldn't boot into the actual game, is now working. Well, to this kind of standard. As you can see, the graphical glitches are going on, but I really want this game working, so hopefully this will be improved. But for now, it's a glitchy mess. And this brings me on to Splatoon, which kind of sums this build of the emulator up. It looks absolutely awesome. It's got all the spit and polish, it's got all the After Effects, all the things that make this look like the genuine article. It's pretty much getting to the stage where the games that are working, it'd be hard to tell the difference between this and the original. The only thing I would say in this incarnation of the build is, for those added tweaks, for those extra features, it's taken a big impact in frames per second, depending on the game you're playing and the kind of build of the computer you've got. I have noticed lags in games which were working to the full potential, but with the added extra effects and the new things that this build of the emulator brings, it's kind of expected. And well, yeah, I would say in the future I would like more compatibility. There's a hell of a lot of games in this catalogue which are unplayable at present. They neither boot or they cannot get past a certain stage to actually make them fully fledged and playable. Too many crashes. And of course, this isn't me being negative. This is very much a work in progress emulator. They far exceeded what I was expecting even at this stage now. And, well, I do not expect anything, but I appreciate everything that they make. So it's pretty much hats off again to Exap and his team and everybody over there, and pretty much the whole scene which is getting behind the Cemu people. It's kind of relit a fire, not just in this emulator, in the scene, but in everything that involves around this. Retro gaming is booming at the moment, and emulation is coming out of the woodwork everywhere. I cannot believe the kind of people which are jumping on board and getting things to happen. So yeah, that pretty much sums up Cemu 1.6.3, and I hope that this has broadened your horizons of what to expect in this build of Cemu. Please guys, if you like what I'm doing, please like, please subscribe, please do all the things that people normally do in this YouTube metropolis of builds of Cemu, which I was not expecting to be at the current stage it is, but it is. But most of all guys, most of all, you have a good day. Laters!